For those of you who are now tuning in for the second part of this, greetings from the Idiot Box. I'm Allison Lips. Joe Coughlin didn't go anywhere. We are now going to discuss the SNL music documentary as well as Saturday Night the movie. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been a week, I tell you, since the last time we checked in with each other. But
Yes.
I
We
think
still
the
haven't seen tonight's episode, though.
no,
Oh,
no,
right. It
we're
was a week ago. We've been so busy, you
yes.
know.
Oh, I mean, look, it was tremendous. When they brought Giuliani in, the real Giuliani, and they all pointed and laughed at him, I thought that was a little lazy, but I felt good inside. Um, Yeah, I think that we're going to talk about the music documentary that Questlove had put on,
Yes.
and they say that it took him a year to do the first like 7 minutes of the documentary. That amazing montage of musical moments that flowed into each other so
That
masterfully.
montage was worth the year.
Yeah, I think that was I would pay real money just to see that keep going.
Also,
It was so
Questlove's
good.
ear and the Roots, like the Roots are probably the best band working on television
Mhm.
nowadays.
Yeah. Well, they were the backbone of the concert that we talked about last week. So, um,
Yes.
they were in pretty much every act that
And
night.
when Questlove wasn't drumming, it was Fred Armisen,
Yeah,
who was
yeah.
with Devo.
I thought it was surprising. It's like Devo, uh, uh, I think it was Fred Armisen's dream probably at one
Oh,
point to
definitely.
to drum for Devo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Uh, I
Questlove
think
wasn't even on the list for that. Fred Armisen's like, I got you.
yeah, yeah. No, I've put me in, coach. I think that you could have easily made that musical documentary though two different documentaries, and it would have
Yes,
focused it much better.
I
Um,
struggled with that because the first half could have been musicians on SNL, and the second half could have been sketches with music.
mhm. And I think it would have underlined how musical sketches really became more of a thing later in SNL's history. Aside
Yes.
from like Nick the Lounge Singer, in the first 5 years, you didn't really have like those recurring sketches like the Sweeney Sisters in the late '80s, or Bobby and Marty. Was it Cohen? Culp? One of those names. And singing. It's all the medleys that we'll do. Um,
Yeah.
or original songs or parodies. Now that they do them often and
I
to
think
good
because they go
effect.
viral. People love a good earworm.
Hmm. Yeah, they
Like
absolutely do.
Domingo,
Hmm. Well,
Ariana
I mean, it's
Grande singing off key.
yeah. I mean, you made a top, probably a number one hit, go viral. So that's a little. You're starting from a position of power with that. But I think that
Even
they've
Lonely
used.
Island after the first one, after Lazy Sunday, then what was it, Dick in a Box?
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't remember when I'm on a boat and I just had sex, and then there's Mother Lover, which is also with Justin Timberlake, and then you
Hmm.
had Three Way, which with Justin Timberlake and Lady Gaga, and
Hmm.
they really should have had that. Like they had Lady Gaga there. I still don't understand why they didn't do Three Way.
I think they just did it to upset you. It's a personal thing. Yeah.
Lorne Michaels has a
uh,
personal vendetta against me.
Allison was expecting to hear three-way, and
We
we're
go
not
way
going to do it.
back.
We're not going to do it because that's just what they'll be expecting, and we do not negotiate with terrorists.
Apparently, by terrorists, he means Taylor Swift.
Well, exactly. He leans on a catchphrase, and that is his catchphrase now.
He does.
It just gets him out and doing things he doesn't want to do.
I was looking at pictures of him, And I'm like, does this man actually have a smile? Because if he's on the red carpet somewhere, he's just like,
Well, they talk about in a lot of these things, especially with auditions, that he doesn't laugh. And I get that. I think
right,
laughter for a comedian, and I could talk from at least my experience,
yeah,
it is something you have to be cognizant of. Is laughing, and they, through the history of SNL, in writing sketches and doing them at table reads, laughter is a weapon to be withheld because you don't want a sketch to go on ahead of yours. You
yeah.
don't want it to be successful. I think that's a dick move as an
Oh, it totally
improviser
is.
over like I've only done limited sketch and such where
But
I'm sorry
improvising is all about yes and being generous to your fellow performers.
yeah, but a
Sketch
stand
comedy is
up,
apparently not that.
it's a zero sum game where you either win or you lose.
Yes,
If you're not first, you're last. I think that it is something that Lauren doesn't do naturally. Laughter is a very social thing.
yes,
And I don't think he is in business mode when he's at SNL.
yes,
I'm sure he laughs. Things catch him by surprise, but it's very
yes.
difficult to surprise somebody who's been in the business for so long because they can. I will tell you that I can see the Matrix sometimes, and it bothers my wife that I'll just say, "Okay, here's the turn. Here's where they're going to where the thesis of the sketch happens, where it's like
Yeah,
something they don't expect. This is where it has to go, or this is what they're trying to do, and like I just see the matrix of behind their brains of sometimes where they will have to go, and sometimes it'll surprise me, which is unexpected and joyous.
right.
Um,
This is why I know a lot of people who love Tim Robinson. And
mhm,
when I was shown I Think You Should Leave, I'm like, this isn't really that funny because I saw where he was going.
mhm. Yeah, I think Robinson is. Like Tim Eric too, like that cringe
Yeah,
kind of comedy, um, where he luxuriates in the discomfort, and that just his natural state.
right,
Um, Chris Elliott was a bit like that too, where it's just like, okay, we're going to do something completely outlandish. It's weird, for the sake of being weird sometimes, but
yeah,
this is just this is where my brain takes me, and you're coming along. If you
right.
don't change the channel.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah,
one of those things where I get it. And I was able to find photos of Lauren actually smiling. So I think it's just when he has to do business events, he's just like,
mhm. I think he also knows that if you give if you give that approval to somebody, somebody might feel slighted. Um, there's a lot of politics that go into
that is true. And
this
he's like the
stuff.
father figure of SNL, and he doesn't
Mhm.
want to play favorites.
Yeah, though he does have them,
I mean, of course he
clearly.
does. It's like the parents where it's like, we have three kids, we love them all the same. And it's like,
Yeah,
but like, your second
I love
child.
I love all my children equally, but I love some more equally.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Fallon is definitely Tina Fey. He has the people
Well, I
who
mean, if he's given them their own show,
oh yeah.
probably. I mean, like, just the
Yeah.
fact that Conan got late night when he was a writer and not a comedian known for sketch comedy as a performer
Hmm.
or as an improviser. Like, he was just a writer who,
Hmm.
as
Yeah,
Conan will admit, had no business hosting a talk show at that time. Of
I think
course,
that
30 years later, we're going to say that's not
he's
the
hosting the
case.
Oscars. He's
Yeah, he's
hosting
a,
the Oscars in a few weeks, so
yes,
or maybe this week. I don't know how calendars work. I think that it goes to Lauren seeing um, what can work, whether people don't see it. Um,
Yes.
and I think it also, Lauren is not perfect. We've talked about that audition episode where he struck out on things. But maybe those people wouldn't have been successful if they were on the SNL cast. Um, Kevin Hart, would he have found the same fame if
I
he
don't
were on
think
SNL?
so. Kevin Hart doesn't seem like someone who would have meshed well on SNL.
No. Whereas Jim Carrey, I think, is a total swing and miss. He would have done very well on SNL. It's
Well, he
clear to
did well
see
on In Living
in Living
Color.
Color.
He was their
Yeah.
designated white guy on In Living
Yeah.
Color. Even he has called himself that. So,
Yeah. I think that it probably worked out for the best for him for sure because it
oh
helped
yeah.
him with like his cool cred that he wouldn't have gotten if he were in the institution that is SNL.
Yeah,
Um,
no one who comes out of SNL is considered cool. It's more like, oh, you went to the Harvard of shows.
yeah, yeah, you're not the same as if you're on some basic cable channel having to do a half hour like Chappelle or Key and Peele. Um,
HBO at some ungodly hour in the morning.
that's right. In the 90s, Mr. Show, but
Yes,
I think it's you know, I think you could either choose to be cool or you could choose to be on for 50 years.
that is true.
Um, and SNL can sometimes have aspects that are seen as, cool.
Isn't
Um,
like the expression you like either die young or live long enough to see yourself become your parents?
yeah, yeah. And SNL did not die,
No.
despite itself. It's had so many close calls over the years. It probably hasn't had a real close call since the 90s, though. Um,
Yep,
I,
no.
I think that,
NBC was banking on SNL50.
yeah, I think it came the closest, maybe the most recent close call was maybe around like the Norm Macdonald um, firing. He wouldn't have fired Norm if he felt he had the power to keep him. And he didn't have that at that time. And that sucked. Though he can make a very clear corporate move when he feels that it'll help the show. I think that's just how you survive in the business, is having to make those calls. I mean, he fired Sandler. He fired
Yeah.
Farley. These people that you see as like, oh, well, they're bankable stars. They're legends. Well, yeah, but
Weren't
at a
at the
certain
time.
point they weren't bringing eyeballs onto the show because viral didn't exist.
No. It is a
And
very different place now.
yeah, where someone like Sandler with his songs and everything, he would be a huge star for many many years until he wanted to leave.
I
Um,
don't think The Lonely Island would have been as big as it was if it wasn't for the internet.
no, not at all. I think that Lonely Island and the rise of YouTube are very much aligned as we talked about last time.
Yes.
It's I think music itself is much more able to be in that 3 to 4 minute chunk
Hmm.
that you find on a radio, whatever that is these days, or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever.
YouTube.
Um, yeah, and YouTube very much so. It what goes viral is what is able to be easily spreadable. And people aren't going to sit down and watch an hour-long show as easily as they're going to watch a 30-second clip.
No,
Uh,
but then again, we have
versus,
a 3 hour homecoming special. So,
yeah, I think at that point you're in for a penny, in for a pound. I've been with SNL for 50 years. That's not true. I've not been around for 50 years, but you've been there long enough. You're like, I want to see what's next.
yeah.
SNL occasionally has the ability to surprise because it is live. That special was live. So
Yes, I think with SNL though, it's when it's hijacked is when it surprises the most.
that's true. That's true. I think that it's when people break. unexpectedly. The Heidi Gardner Beavis and Butthead sketch went huge
Yeah.
because and I think it worked because she's not someone who typically does that, and it was very clearly a human moment, and people get that.
It's also
Um,
Beavis and Butthead, which has its own cultural cachet.
yeah, and Mikey looked hilarious
Yeah.
as Beavis, and Ryan Gosling as Butthead. It was just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Kudos to the makeup and hair department for that week. Uh, they're the MVP. I
They're the
think, yeah,
MVP of every week.
unsung heroes. Because if it's that thing of, if you start noticing it, then they're not doing their jobs. But if it just becomes an aspect of the actor's toolkit that helps them get into the character they need to get into, then they've done their jobs. I feel like Lisa from Temecula because I'm wearing this outfit. I feel like,
Yes.
Boudin because I look like Boudin. Uh, you know, an
Yeah.
iceberg from the Titanic. Uh, you know, yeah,
Yeah, and Lorne has said, or I don't know if he specifically said, but someone was quoting him in one of the documentaries that he wants the cast member to be recognizable. So
mhm.
yes, the artists over in the makeup department can create things where they're unrecognizable and look exactly like a character, but that's not what SNL is about.
Yeah, it's interesting. You look back at the very first two presidents that SNL covered in their history. I mean, you
Mhm.
have Chevy as Gerald Ford,
Of course.
and they did zip to make him look like Gerald Ford.
Mhm.
And
To
then you
just bow
have
down, which happened
Yeah,
once.
and then you have Dan Aykroyd as Jimmy Carter, still with a mustache. They didn't Cesar Romero him at all. You know, he has a mustache. They didn't make his hair look any different really. He just did the
It's the
voice.
voice. It's the voice.
Yeah, a very good voice. One of the best. But it's funny, he didn't really revisit that ever again. Even I looked at a few weeks ago, and it's like occasionally they like Daryl Hammond would do a Jimmy Carter making houses with Habitat for Humanity. But whenever Aykroyd would come back and he would do a political
Yeah.
impression, it was always Bob Dole. Um, and that was the point where they would start making you look a little more like the person. Um, and yeah, I think they do spend a lot of time to give you the idea of
Yes.
this person. This is not, Sarah Sherman. This is whoever they want to
But
have
it's
her
also not
be.
a biopic.
Yeah, and I think that if you have a good enough actor, you don't need it.
Right.
Um, you just have them. This is, I mean, it becomes if you need it to be, um, the face be on there, then you just have AI do that. But you
That's
don't.
true.
You have actors do these things. You have makeup and hair. Yeah.
And I think this is probably the time to transition to Saturday Night, the movie, the Jason Reitman movie.
Yeah, talk about caricature, right? Um,
Yes, and I also found among my myriad of TV memorabilia the
oh,
Rolling Stone. This came out in 1979. It is all the Rolling Stone articles up until that point. So we got
oh
Michael
wow.
O'Donoghue, Gilda Radner in here. Who else do we have? World of Gorch is in here.
A centerfold with Mr. Bill.
We've got the bees. Yeah, so you get the point.
Yeah,
I recommend if you're an SNL fan, you can get a copy of this online.
that's amazing. That's an amazing artifact
It's
of
Rolling Stone Visits. Yeah, Saturday Night Live.
yeah. I think the Reitman film. I mean, I've read his interviews, and I've seen the movie, And part of me is just like, I don't know what you were really trying to do.
It felt like I was watching an overly long episode of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Yeah, yeah, I think
And
it's
that show was okay. It was clearly an Aaron Sorkin movie, and Aaron Sorkin is known for The West Wing and Sports Night and various movies, not for sketch comedy.
yeah, it's hard to talk about. It's hard to write about funny people when you're not yourself that funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Reitman can do comedy and write broader, like different comedy, but not like the comedy that SNL would be known for. And the same
No,
thing with
and
Sorkin. Sorkin would write like these things that would talk about how these characters were geniuses, and then write the most pedestrian sketches for them. Um, like they're doing the Major General song as like this genius sketch, and it's like in 20 whatever 13, like how does that, like that doesn't make any sense. i
no.
don't I don't get it. It doesn't it, in what universe? I think the Saturday Night Movie, it is somebody who read um the Saturday Night Oral History, and is like read all of the stories over the years and got
Put
to
it
pick
in
and
one movie.
choose and got to
Because
pick and
it's also
choose.
supposed to be live within 2 hours when
Yeah,
it condenses events from a season into
yeah.
2 hours. It makes
I
no
mean,
sense.
Milton Berle didn't host that season. He hosted like a few seasons later.
The
But like,
Romper Room was not a real TV show.
you know, I think
Or Rumpus
uh
Room. Romper Room actually
yeah,
was. Rumpus Room.
I grew up with Romper Room from
Yeah, Rumpus
WOI.
Room.
Uh
Yeah, Rumpus Room is not a real TV show.
no, I think it was just a bunch of anecdotes and caricatures. I mean, it was just kind of interesting because they are caricaturing a show that often caricatures people. So I think it's fair game. But whether it
Don't
comes
think it was
together
well
as
done.
whether it comes together as a cohesive piece, like I get there were Easter eggs for an SNL fan like me. There's a box of colon blow cereal in one of his desks, and like that, of course, was 1990 or so. That commercial
Also,
parody.
the movie grossed 9.8 million against its 25 to 30 million-dollar budget. It was a swing and a miss.
And it's that thing of like, who is this for? I mean, is it the SNL super fan who, if you're an SNL super fan, you're probably not ride or die for the original cast because you're either
No.
really old or dead. No offense to the people who are alive back then, but you are probably Lorne Michaels' age, and you are not going to the theater because you might get COVID and not come back. I
It
think
is
it's that.
50 years, so you can be like 60 and still remember early Saturday
Sure.
Night Live.
But it's like, do I really want to see this fictionalized? Like, if it was like this is a documentary about the first episode, okay,
Yeah.
I'm in. I want to see that. But it also is like,
Especially you can just go watch the first episode. NBC aired it last night.
why
It's
are you
on
limiting it?
Peacock.
Why are you limiting it to the first episode for one? You could have had like this is the first season, or this
That
is
would have
a
made more sense logically.
yeah, like the rise, like because then you would have been able to cover Chevy leaving. He leaves in the middle of the first season, oh, close to the end of the first season, but like, you know, and I don't think he started off as the a-hole he became because he wasn't famous yet. You
Right.
start getting that inflated sense of yourself when you have people inflating you, and that's always the case with SNL, and thus always is true about your hangers-on around you saying, oh, you're the best. They're not putting you on as much. They should really have your name over the title. It should be Chevy Chase's Saturday Night.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and maybe you come out to LA and we'll do movies and where you'll be a real star.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that Chevy's better known now as a movie star than he is as you know uh, an SNL
I mean,
cast
he's
member.
better known for how much of a horrible person he is to deal with.
I think that's fair. It's Randy Quaid, Chevy Chase.
And Chevy
I
Chase
think
also got kicked off of Community.
yeah, I think Randy has gotten better. I think he's maybe medicated, but I think that yeah, I'm wishing the best for Randy and Chevy as we do all former cast members of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I was
Um,
surprised that they made like, oh, hi, Chevy, and like just the old man, very confused, shaking Jimmy Fallon's hand at the 50th
oh
homecoming.
well, yeah, it was. Don't tell Jimmy to vamp. Jimmy can't vamp for
No,
his
that
life.
was yeah, like oh, that
That's
was
where you
awful.
send out. That's where you send out an improviser.
Yes,
Or someone who or a stand-up who does crowd work. Um,
yes,
but Jimmy is not. Jimmy is his stand-up
Jimmy.
was created so that he would be on SNL.
Right. Also, Jimmy is talented, but they tend to have Jimmy doing things that he is not very good at.
No, and I think that's a disservice to him. I think
But
that
then
if
we
you,
all just make fun of him for not being very good when it's like the problem is he's not doing what he's good at. It's
yeah,
not that he has no talent.
I think he has. You're not in the business for this long without having talent, and I think he absolutely has talent. It's just that he doesn't have the always the right people showcasing what he's good at.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things he's not great at, he wants to do because he wants to be better at it, or he thinks he's good at it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, he's great at musical comedy.
he is, and I think that he's also someone. If you need someone to be enthusiastic about something, he's your guy. He is absolutely, you know,
Don't invite
hey
him to a
everybody, here
funeral,
we
it'll
go.
get weird.
Yeah. Oh my God, guys, here we go. He you rev him up and let him go and be, pitch things. But yeah, I think that the Saturday Night Movie allows for that caricature and also you just got to have a lot of things overlap that didn't really happen.
Right, like
And
Milton Berle, there was no reason for him to be there at all. I mean, J.K. Simmons did a
Mhm.
credible job as Milton Berle, but I'm like, is Milton Berle just in this thing so that we can get a joke about how large his penis is?
I think yeah. I think they read that in the oral history of Saturday Night Live. And they were like, this story's too good to not be in this genius movie that will make more than $25 million. And
9.8
yeah,
million.
yeah. And on top of that is all the money they spent in trying to market it.
And they just, yeah, because like you said, as an SNL super fan, this wasn't really your thing. As someone who's a TV historian, this isn't really my thing because I'm like, this is not accurate and not even close to being accurate. Not like,
No.
oh, this is off because they had to cut something out because of the movie and the time running. Like, no, none of these things could possibly happen within 2 hours.
I think Reitman had the idea that he wanted this framing device of the ticking clock to 11:30, and
Yeah.
that's he envisioned that early on, and he would let it go when you could have told a much more full story if it had been stretched out to the first season or even the first 5 years. It could have been interesting to like pop in and out of these moments that actually did happen. You don't need to create to make SNL an interesting story.
No,
um
and I felt like the Beyond Saturday Night, the documentary with the one with Io Idibiri,
mhm,
that was basically the real version of this, only a different week and much more recent.
mhm.
But that was what
Yeah,
actually goes on in a week. Whereas this, it's like, this is the whole season in 2 hours. Like, you had a cool idea that doesn't work.
yeah. Yeah, I think it was overstuffed. Nothing was allowed to breathe. I think that the intention was probably to make it feel a little bit more claustrophobic because it's like, oh my God, are they going to make it to 11:30 when like we
Yes,
know they
they
did.
will.
We know they did. We know the show went on and it went really well. And then the
Yeah.
next week, people said the second episode wasn't as good as the first one.
Oh, and
Uh,
it was 109 minutes, so it was a little over an hour and a half. So
well,
it
that makes
wasn't a
about sense.
2 hour
Yeah.
movie, but it felt like a 2 hour movie.
Yeah, I think that you have you have someone who idolizes SNL and they want to do something about it. And they use their skill set in order to try to make something happen, and it didn't quite get there. I
And
think
they could
that
have also done more with the whole Johnny Carson thing, which actually did happen.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think there was more, you know, Carson reruns were on Saturday nights
Right,
for
and
many,
NBC
many.
really did call Carson's bluff, and it's like, fine, we'll just air something else there.
Yeah, it does remind you that like things were much 75. You're very early on in the LA run of the Tonight Show.
Yes.
Maybe 3 years since they had left New York. I'm going to say 71, 72 is when they left for Burbank. And you forget
72,
that.
May 1st, 1972.
Yeah, you forget
May
that
tends to be
for
a big month for The Tonight Show.
yeah. Well, you forget though is just like okay for the first 10 years of 10 plus years really,
Mhm.
going to the Steve Allen years, it was a New York show, and now
A
it's a New York
very
show.
New
It has
York
been.
show at that.
Yeah. And then for 30 years, 30 plus years, including the Leno and
Conan,
Conan
6 months.
times. Yeah. Lennon, Conan, Leno. It's the Grover Cleveland or Donald Trump bookmark um, of Leno. Um, and then back to New York. Um, and so you forget, and I'm sure there'll be a point where we forgot that it was in LA, or people will forget that it was ever
I
in
mean,
LA.
Jimmy has already hosted The Tonight Show. Fallon has hosted The Tonight Show
Mhm.
for 10 years already, which is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And first of all, Carson went off the air when I was about a year old. So we're
Mhm.
already approaching a time when people don't remember Carson, which, if
Yeah.
you're over a certain age or you're a TV fan, that's a bit painful.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you could easily make a movie about Johnny Carson. That would be interesting.
Well, they
There's
had
been a lot of
oh my God, what is his name? Mad About You. What's the guy's name in Mad About You?
Paul
I
Reiser. Oh, here's Johnny on Hulu,
Yes,
wasn't it?
thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, Paul
yeah,
Reiser's, which you can't get
yeah,
anywhere now.
yeah. That's one of those ones they pulled off, and that's a shame. It was a passion project, I know, for Reiser. Um, yeah, I think that I mean SNL is very much a New York show where only one of their episodes has ever been done outside of the city.
Which there's Johnny.
There's Johnny.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I think that it's interesting to look at New York as a very integral element of the show. I mean, it was they say it every week, live from New York, except for that one New Orleans episode. That is interesting.
Wait,
It would
I
be an
think I may
interesting
have
watch
just
along.
hit upon it. I think it's on the Roku channel.
Oh,
Here's
cool.
Johnny maybe on the Roku channel.
Oh, they'd really
The Roku channel is
know
the
how this
uh, the
happened.
the Tubi of Pluto's. There's so many of
Yes.
these fast. You could do an entire episode of these fast channels. The fast um,
Yes.
things,
I
yeah.
have this
Versus like,
whole thing where my mom's like, "What's it on?" And it's like, "Okay, is it on the streaming service for the network that aired it or the one that produced it?"
yeah. Oh no, it's on Tudball, and it's like, what's Tudball? I've never heard of that. It's like, yeah, no, it's a thing. You just download it on your TV, but only if you have Samsung. Okay.
Now that drives me crazy because there is a Conan channel and a Letterman channel on Samsung. And I have one Samsung TV in my house, which is too old to be a functioning smart TV. It was like the
Hmm.
beginning of smart TVs,
Uh,
and it doesn't work as a smart TV. So we have a Roku stick in it.
I think we've gone full circle when they're relying on old episodes of Conan to bring people to Samsung. It's just like
Because of stupid
GE
pet
owning.
trips.
Yeah, it's like GE owning NBC for many years to sell TVs.
Well, it was RCA, then GE. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Radio Corporation of America.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
think. Yeah, go ahead.
It's just like you said, like everything comes full circle. There are way too many channels to keep track of. Well, streaming channels. Then there's still like cables holding on for dear life. Which,
Uh,
like, I was looking at the numbers, and Cartoon Network has lost 91% of its audience. Disney's lost like 70 something. Comedy Central's also lost over like 50% of its audience since
MTV is all just
2015.
ridiculousness or um,
Yeah.
Teen Mom. It's crazy
Right,
to
the
see.
whole zombie networks.
Yeah, they're around, and people will watch them because but fewer and fewer. I think it's this thing of I want it's the Veruca salting of your viewers is I want to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch when I want to watch it. I want it now.
Okay.
And really, the killer app is getting people connected to what they want to watch when they want to watch it without
Which is
having to have a
YouTube.
million subscriptions.
Which is YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or sketchy friends on Reddit.
Which is all people on Reddit. I'm talking to you. Uh,
You're on
uh,
notice.
hey, I'm on Reddit.
Yeah, I think we're all on Reddit.
I'm sketchy, but not skitty.
I knew that was
Callback,
coming.
full circle. Uh,
Yes, if
uh,
you missed it, Joe can be you can catch Joe Saturday night at Comedy Sports in Asbury Park.
yes, yes. Come out and see us. We are funny, and we are. No, you have to pay for us generally, but um,
Is it still
we're
$5?
we're I think it's 10.
Oh,
Um,
it's 10 now?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never bought a ticket to see me. So I don't pay much attention to what people. But you know what it is? The experience is priceless. Uh, so if you've liked what you've seen here, come see me on stage. If you didn't like it, see me anyway. I'm much better there. You know, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
okay, Joe.
yeah. You're getting your money's worth for this performance. Uh, as you're watching on a Samsung television for the Allison Lips streaming channel on Fast. In
Yes,
between an ad,
coming
an
to.
ad, in between an ad for suppositories and Sattva mattresses.
Why suppositories?
Why not?
Why not? Okay.
Yeah. You can always tell what they expect your audience to be when you see the commercial load that a show has, and
I
it's
know, like
like,
Game Show Network is always like, do you need Medicare Advantage?
yeah, reverse mortgages are something you probably should look into. You've had a house, you own a
Colonial
house, right?
Pen.
Yeah, you're old, right? It's like they don't say it out loud, but they're
Oh.
saying it.
And then Nickelodeon is like, this new toy.
Yay! Uh, are you one of the kids whose screen time is limited by their parents, but not TV screen time because your parents think that's different than iPad screen time? Well, guess what, kids? Here we are. Thank God for that. Having grown up being plopped in front of a television, I'm grateful for the education that I was provided by Looney Tunes and by Nickelodeon back when it was, good. I know that was bitchy of me, but hey, I could say what I want to say. I'm an
I
adult.
mean, you're also, not the target audience.
That's true. And this speaks well to me as a functioning human adult, is that I've not
Yes,
watched Nickelodeon in the past 25 to 30 years. So,
yes, congratulations.
yeah, I mean, I'll occasionally drop in on a SpongeBob, on, but that's pretty much the extent. I'm not what this is for anymore.
No. Yeah,
Or
it
Disney
drives me
Channel,
crazy. It drives me
back when
crazy when
Disney.
people are like our age and are complaining about Nickelodeon. And it's like, why are you watching it? You don't have children. Joe? Joe, you froze. Joe? Okay, I think we lost Joe. Joe? Joe?
Hello.
Hi, you're back.
The app crashed on me and I went away. Um,
Hey. Yeah,
this
I
uh,
texted
this
you like yeah.
yeah, you appeared to freeze on me, and then it crashed, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess
Yeah, so we were congratulating you on being a functioning adult.
yeah, I don't watch the Disney Channel. I used to like that used to be all I would watch.
Right.
Um, my parents loved me enough in order, back when Disney was a premium channel, they would pay for Disney Channel for us. Um, and my
I don't
grandmother had
even remember
HBO.
when Disney was premium. Like I know it
Yeah,
was, but it wasn't by the time that I was watching
late
it.
'90s. And then it became, more or less a basic channel.
Yes.
So yeah, I um I love looking back at the growth of all these channels that you would grow up with,
Yes.
and look back at like with nostalgia of all of these interstitials and all the things that you would just miss that you would think to keep.
I
The
mean,
rise of lost media. I'm
yes,
always
there's the
eagerly
Lost
watching to see
Media
what pops up.
Wiki.
Yeah. A lot of dedicated people looking for these little snippets that are in the back of your head and have formed a great part of your being, just
Yeah.
pop on all the time and now have long since been forgotten.
Right, like
Um,
some random local commercial.
hmm Yeah, and you're grateful for the people who just pushed record on a VHS machine in like 1987, and now they have the whole block of commercials during a rerun of The Jeffersons.
Right, and you're like, "Oh, this is cool." Like I remember I don't remember what it was for. It was for a dog training school and they're like, "You send your kids to school, why not send your dogs?" Like this is a perfectly normal thing to say in the 90s. Because this was before people started referring to their pets as their children.
Oh yeah, the golden age of golden retrievers.
So it was like that is odd. Whereas now it would be like wink wink, nudge nudge, like
Mm,
okay.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, people spend way too much on their animals. Um, it's
Well,
like
this
they
office
don't
was
know the difference
designed
between quality.
I mean, this office was designed with my cats in mind, so had space.
Well, that's good. You're doing that for you though, not for them.
Well, I mean, they have a table so they can look out the window.
Nice.
So, I mean,
Um,
it's a little bit for them, a
yeah,
little, but but
but
they
I
are
think
living beings who live in my house, so I
yeah,
can't be completely
I think the difference I'm
rude.
trying to say is that like
Yeah,
they don't know the difference between like a $50 IKEA table and
Right.
like this really expensive, cat palace that you
Right.
buy
Like they
with
have
little
an old
things.
piano bench. That is
Yeah,
what they use to look out the
yeah,
window, you know.
that's perfect.
Yeah, I can go out and buy them some elaborate
Yeah,
cat
they
table.
they don't care about cool.
No,
Dogs and cats don't care about cool. They're not
no.
tastemakers. They are just existing in the moment, and I love that about them. uh,
But
yeah,
SNL is a tastemaker, and we have been talking
yeah,
about SNL.
yeah. I think that we talked a lot about Lorne and how he has shaped taste over the years, but he's not the only one.
No, and I
Um,
also find it interesting how like it's SNL. Like no one's been calling it Saturday Night Live. It's SNL. It's SNL50.
I always listen with interest when Conan says, because he usually will say the full name Saturday Night Live, and he will say Saturday, almost like Saturday Night, like he slurs the Saturday night into like Saturday Night Live. He will more rarely say SNL, at least in my experience listening to talk about his time on the show. He'll talk about Saturday Night Live. When I was on Saturday Night Live,
Yeah, he won't. You're right.
yeah,
You're right.
it's
He
just
doesn't.
a quirk of him, and I think that's kind of interesting.
I don't. I feel like Conan's not a guy who uses abbreviations very much.
Hmm, that's probably true. He is a person out of time in a way, um, which makes him kind of more timeless in an interesting way, because he never. And I think SNL, in this compare and contrasting, between SNL and what Conan does,
Hmm.
is that aside from the monologues, Conan's comedy was never super topical.
Even the
It was a lot more.
monologues
Yeah.
were not always topical.
No, no. I mean, there'd be a occasional like they would do the clutch cargo with Clinton, but
That I
um,
think that was the most topical he ever got.
yeah, but
And
the
with the
rest of the stuff was just
Governator.
like yeah, and I think that SNL. You could say that a lot of their first half hours of shows have been very topical when moments have called for it. Like any election season, the cold open is always going to be an election sketch now.
Yes.
And people look forward to it, and their ratings do very, very well, whether the sketches are good or not. I
Yeah,
think that.
election seasons tend to be when SNL shines.
Mhm. Well, we're now in this era though of stunt casting on SNL. And I
Yes.
don't quite know when it began. Within the
Yeah,
last
it's
eight
very
to
weird
12
because
years.
a lot of these people who figures are no longer played by cast members. They're like, oh, we're gonna get Alec Baldwin and he's gonna play Donald Trump, or
Hmm.
Jim Gaffigan, I think, was the one playing.
Jim
Um,
Walls.
yes, thank you.
Hmm. Yeah. And well, they had Tim Kaine play himself, and they were like, "Do you remember who I am?" No, we do not remember who you are. He's like, "I ran for president, for vice president, 8 years ago." No, we do not remember you, Tim Kaine. I think that yeah, we are in the stuntcast era of SNL, and I'm curious to see how it continues. I think you have enough though for just your alums to do things. You're seeing more people pop in. Recent years, there's always been like maybe one or two episodes per year that are very alum heavy, and they're
Yeah.
often Christmas episodes. Um, Christmas episodes are a huge one for SNL. But
Yes.
there's also maybe sometime one at the end of the year where it's kind of a homecoming too, where it's just like everybody was in New York, and we can't say no to bringing on whoever,
Yeah.
whenever they're in town.
Right. We
And
almost
we'll
had the Beatles reunited
yeah. So
for
it's
$3,000. We could have had not Ringo, John Lennon and Paul McCartney on
yeah,
SNL.
split it up however you like. Give less to Ringo, not my concern. um, $3,000 American. Uh, yeah, I think that I'll be curious to see what the future of SNL holds. Um, I think, part of all of this SNL50 stuff is thinking about the future right after you've looked to the past.
Do you
Um,
think that SNL is going to survive after Lauren retires? Because I
I
have a
do.
feeling it's not going to last very long. I think it will, but I don't think it's going to continue
I think it.
being the
I think it.
powerhouse.
I think it will. I think what'll happen is you're going to get people who are younger who are able to pivot faster. So if something does need to change, they can make things change. I think that you have to ask the question of what is the essence of SNL? What makes SNL SNL? It's probably that it's in New York, it's live, and it's a moment that's very rare for entertainment. Aside from sports, which is something we all watch together at the same time. If you are somebody who's a fan of the show, um,
Yeah.
otherwise you'll see little clips here and there, much like
I like,
sports
yeah,
highlights.
basically tell me what's worth watching. I
Yeah,
not staying up to watch it. I'm not even
yeah.
watching it the next day on Peacock.
Where and I'm somebody who I love often the last sketch of the night, the 10-1 sketches, where it's just like this is the most bizarre, bonkers, left field thing they could think of, and I want to see what they come up with because somebody got away with something, and and it could lead to genius or it could lead to complete ruin because they had to cut half of the sketch 30 seconds before it went on because the musical guest went long.
Right.
And that's the brilliance of live TV. I think that amazing things can happen under pressure. You either break everything or you come up with a diamond at the end.
Yes.
Um, and
And that's
I
what makes
I
SNL work.
yeah, I'm optimistic about SNL. I think as a brand name, it is certainly recognizable and it means something. And I think it's high time that um, you know it's always interesting to see when new blood comes in and what that means, whether it's a new cast or, and we've already had two regime changes in its 50-year history, and then reverting back to the original. So
And
I'll be
there's
interested to
also, we
see,
haven't mentioned Steve Higgins at all,
yeah, or Marcy
who,
Klein.
yeah,
These people who are just foundational to SNL. And what who will take over after Lauren leaves? I
yeah,
have always speculated that I don't think one person can do it. I think Lauren is a very unique creature who has
yeah,
been created over the past 50 years to branch out into many different things and has a lot of different skill sets. Whereas somebody
yes,
else who would be the executive producer of Saturday Night Live in the future is somebody who has to focus on SNL. And that's something that Lauren doesn't do and never did, or at least hasn't in many years, focused solely on Saturday Night Live. He has Broadway Video as a company that exists, and
yes,
he makes other things and spin-offs and whatnot. What would happen if somebody had all of their attention on Saturday Night Live? Whether that's, I know people have speculated Tina Fey or Seth Meyers or
yeah, there's
Higgins.
been people floated, yeah,
Yeah, I think that that person would be more of a creative um, force than he would be or she would be a business force. I think that's a different job that this
right.
person necessarily wouldn't take on. I think that yeah, I think that Lauren
I
is
think that
many many
Lorne as
hats.
more business who knows how to spot comedy talent. Like, yes, he
Hmm.
has written comedy. He had, what was it, the Lorne and Hart show in Canada,
Hmm.
or the Lorne and Hart Hour, but he's become this business figure in television more so than, like, no one's looking at something and being like, that's a Lorne Michaels sketch.
Hmm. No, that's true. Whereas you can see the fingerprints of many, and I think that speaks to the fact that he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to be the driving force of the individual bits. He is the author of the engine
Yes.
um, that's under the hood, and he doesn't make the chassis. He doesn't make the outside of it. and other people are the face of things, and he's a figurehead, really, and but he's hands-on figurehead.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
you
he
know.
is the face of SNL.
hmm but other people are the hands that are doing the actual, sketches, and being seen as being the driving force of the writing. Um, yeah, I think it'll survive. I hope it'll survive. It's something that I think um, television needs, um, and I think it exists because it is the only surviving variety series. I mean, this is very much a product of the '70s. It
Yes, it
is
is.
it is like the Lauren's version of Donnie and Marie. It's the Cher, Sonny and Cher. As much as Lauren didn't love it, it is Carol Burnett show, but live. And that was his twist. And
Yeah.
putting it in New York. It was not an LA based show.
No.
So I think that it needs to exist. I think that if it didn't exist, someone will try to come up with something that will fill the void. And I imagine other networks would be champing at the bit to retake Saturday night, at
That's
least
true.
after 11:30, because the remainder of the day part does not exist. Of Saturday does not exist other than sports
True.
for the networks. The only thing that exists prime time on Saturdays is reruns and sports, and thus always has been since the '90s.
And
Um,
probably NBC's airing Dateline, and CBS is probably airing some 60 minutes special.
they got it's a 48 hours uh, retrospective. It's like when we have 48 hours, it'll just be our Dateline, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Or
yeah.
2020 reports.
I remember when 2020 was good. Where's my Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters?
Jeez.
But yeah, I think but Lauren gets to decide when he goes.
Yes,
I
does.
mean, and it's hard to say goodbye. I think just like SNL was always bad at writing endings to sketches, Lauren's having a difficult time coming up with an ending for his career. Because yeah, no one's gonna wipe him off. No one's gonna play him off the stage, and he has to
No.
decide for himself when his bow will come, if he wants there to even be one.
Right. And there's he's floated at the end of the 50th year, which now he's like, no, not gonna happen.
It's like, check in with me after, and he'll just kick
Yeah.
it down the curb. But I think that he can't. You're not going to be as nearly as energetic at 80 than you were at 30.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just picturing him like, dying at SNL in the middle of a live Saturday night, and NBC's like, cue the tape we've had. We've been
uh,
prepared for this moment.
Tragedy today is Gerald Ford. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to during the anniversary special that we
Yeah.
watched many days ago. Um, and yeah.
Well, I would love to have you back on to talk about that anniversary special that is tonight, February 12th, February 16th. Um, and thank you, Joe. Is there anything you would like to add before we go about yourself, about comedy sports?
No, I'm just envisioning now, like, this is the moment, like SNL good nights, I want to thank Jimmy JJ Walker. I want to thank I want to thank the Chainsmokers. I want to thank Donnie and Marie. And it was a great being here in New York this week. Everybody was great, and then get played off by the band.
So this hasn't been live from New York. Thank you, Joe Coughlin. I'm Allison Lips. This has been Greetings from the Idiot Box. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you listen to us next time. Bye. Okay.